actually a 5-minute game. So we can see that somebody is being a cheeky, cheesy boy. And you know, it's Harstem. So Harstem knows a lot of builds. If you go on his YouTube channel, he's got an amazing array of silly, stupid, beating GMs with stupid stuff is a series that he's doing. And then he's got some, you know, actual serious builds that are actually very solid. And then he's got some just clown videos. So, you know, he's capable of cheesing very well, I'm sure. But we'll go from Mana's perspective, who I think would be a slightly better player than Harstem. But I don't think that far off. I think Harstem's actually just got really insanely good recently. And he's definitely been putting in the work. So but it's hard because I just don't see that much of Mana. Like, I saw him on the water slides being a goon. And I saw him play Alpha Star. And then, like, you don't see much of him. He doesn't seem to stream that much, if at all. I don't think he streams, so he just doesn't have the public eye on him like Harstem might. So yeah, let's go. So copy and paste build up until 1 minute. 1 minute, actually. And already, wait, hold on a second. What is this, Mr. Mana? So you remember Parting did this in his game against Showtime. He does Gateway Scout and then he does second Gateway Scout. And that lets him proxy something without alerting his opponent. So we may actually be seeing the exact same thing from Mana. So, but I think it'll be a double Scout at the Gateway Scout. So yeah, he's sending another probe right now. What's up, Sticky, by the way, and thank you for the follow. So he's sending another probe right now, and one of them's going to go along the scout path, relieving his opponent of the worry that we are being proxied, and his other probe is going to go and proxy someone and abuse his opponent's trust. So again, 15 out of 16 and then rally into gas. So as I say, this seems to be extremely common. And then we go on to the proxying stuff part of the game. Let's just have a quick peek. I know this is a focus on Mana, but we've got Harstem over here who's done a gate probe, and the probe is running on over to build a pylon, which you may see Liquid Mana might actually see, but we're close, but that doesn't mean we're going to see each other. We might actually just scoot and skirt on by. Maybe we're going to proxy here by the looks of it. So we'll see what happens. But again, 15 out of 16 on minerals, rally into gas seems to be the standard, and regardless of what we're doing. So let's have a look. Liquid Mana over here about to build a pylon. Wait, hold on a second. This is his third pylon and it's very early. So the second pylon is just about to finish, and then about 5 seconds later the third pylon is about to finish. So this is once again to make your opponent not worried when he gets into your main. He sees a second pylon and he's not too terrified of a proxy, except there is a proxy and it's going to be much earlier. So Parting's third pylon was in time to give him the supply he needed. You can see we're 25 out of 39 supply, where we only have 2 gate production and a nexus to make work as well. So the supply isn't going to go up very quickly, so we're very oversupplied here. So there's a slight inefficiency in this build in order to create the facade that we're not cheesing. And Harstem obviously is doing something similar in that he proxied his first pylon and then he goes and scouts. And actually Mana is using his 2 probes to scout the map for proxies. Oh, he's just seen it in the bottom left. Look at that. So I like this from Mana. Again, he's doing something that you don't see anyone do. So Parting did something similar, except he used his third pylon for supply and didn't sacrifice that initial efficiency in order to do a better bamboozle, a slightly earlier proxy, and still the same mind game effect. And then we're using 2 probes to actually scout the map for a proxy. And Harstem actually does a very cheeky boy is our Harstem. Doesn't have a tech structure yet. Actually just goes ahead and builds a second pylon here and then doesn't build a tech structure off of this. So it's just, as I say, what I expect to become very standard is just to throw that pylon somewhere. Maybe it'll be useful later to warp into depths or DTs, especially if you're contained. Maybe it won't, but at the very least your opponent's going to freak out if he gets to your main and doesn't see a second pylon. So It's actually the reverse. It's like a reverse Uno card being played by Harstem. Let's just have a look. Yeah, so it is the second pylon. So Harstem wants his opponent to think he's proxying when Harstem isn't proxying. Mana wants his opponent to think that he's not proxying when he is proxying. So do you see the bamboozles that everyone does against each other? Like, it's all bamboozle. No one's playing a solid Sentry Stalker opener and just going into a 3-base who can micro links Stalkers and Disruptors or Carriers, and Phoenix is the best, right? It's none of that. It's bamboozle versus bamboozle. That's what the P in PvP stands for. Bamboozle. You might think bamboozle doesn't start with a P, but that's the real bamboozle, so don't even go there. So yeah, Mana doesn't really understand what's going on. He's gone into Harstem's base, he's seen that there's no second pylon, so he's like, it's proxy, let's scout the entire map, which he does. He uses his 2 probes to scout the entire map. He finds the proxy pylon, but wait, it's just a pylon, 100 minerals over there in the corner of the map. Meanwhile, Harstem goes Sentry Stalker, so macro opener, not a proxy. Third pylon goes on the high ground, not on the low ground. So this probe doesn't have any reason to believe that Harstem is going for a quick nexus and not going to spend his resources on something like a proxy tech structure. And the pylon doesn't give it away either, because if the pylon was down here, you might be like, oh yeah, okay, fake proxy pylon, and then you expand. But no, pylon goes up here as well, and then you just stick your nexus down there. Easy. Look at the timing compared to Mana. So if Harstem gets away with this, instant, very nice eco lead, and Harstem also has the benefit of trying to figure out what the heck his opponent is doing, and countering that with the right tech choice. Unfortunately, I think this won't go well for Harstem, because as I say, he doesn't scout Harstem, so he doesn't scout that this pylon was there on time and that it wasn't a proxy, when actually it was a proxy. So Harstem doesn't really ever get bamboozled by this because he doesn't scout for the second pylon. So all of Liquid Mana's efforts were for naught. But I think Harstem still doesn't expect a proxy from Mana for whatever reason, because you don't go and build your nexus like this if you think your opponent could have a Proxy Robo, especially the Proxy Robo could be really close, right? So I'd be a little bit nervous if I were Harstem. It's not like he scouted for the Robo anywhere either, so this general rule of going into your opponent's main, seeing that the second pylon is in there, and only then do you expand after 2 units, Harstem's breaking that bad boy. No rules for Harstem, that's for sure. At the same time, he's feeling the pressure from the Adept, so he's constantly trying not to lose his mineral line to Adepts. And what waddles in, guys? Like, Harstem didn't expect this, so this is very sad for him. When he sees an Immortal, 2 Adepts, and 2 Stalkers walk in, and what does he have to answer this? Well, he's got 4 Gateway units, and they all get wrecked by the Immortal. So, GG Nexus, at the very least. If you don't just die here, this warp gate's not even finished. There's 7 seconds to warp in, to transform to warp gate, right? 7 seconds where you can't even build a sentry. So you might even just walk up the ramp. I think that's a bit scary just because of probes. It's not like we have a warp prism here already. So probably just wait for the warp prism rather than going up the ramp. Oh, and there is a sentry, it's just it uses hallucination. So perhaps if that had energy, there was some room to just cut off the Immortal or something, but generally speaking, it's a sad situation. We cancel the Nexus, and at this point, Mana can just expand and win the game that way. But he seems to be keen on attacking. This gateway is like a freebie when you go Robo Proxy. You can't really defend it as the defender. So that's minus 150 minerals guaranteed. And then we expand and go Stargate, like Classic did, right? Sorry, why am I saying Classic? Stats. Just expand and go Stargate, or rather go Stargate and then expand. I feel like we're overcommitting as Mana here to things that aren't Phoenixes, because he's got loads of cool units for sure. His Robo was earlier, so he's got nice robo units. But if the opponent went for disruptors, I think that would be a way for Harstem to get back in the game. And then if you went for if you'd just gone for Colossus if the opponent was hanging around for too long, but you'd usually just go Disruptor. You see, Harstem goes for a Stargate here, because again, Phoenix is just very cost efficient against Immortals, just lifting them up, and Phoenix doesn't do any shooting, but neither does the far more expensive Immortal, so it's always a nice way to just guarantee value from your Stargate. It's just, what's the best case scenario when you go Stargate? The best case scenario is you take a fight and your opponent doesn't disengage, and the Phoenixes are able to catch a bunch of really expensive units like Immortals and Stalkers for free. That's the best case scenario, and that relies on the opponent being bad and also not having recall to just recall out, because if you've gone Stargate Phoenix, you don't actually have that much DPS in your army anymore, and if you've Graviton beamed the Immortals, then your own Immortals on the ground, the only thing that can like real punch and damage, isn't going to kill the ones that are beamed because they can't shoot up. So you end up in this really awkward situation where even though you've beamed all the expensive units, they just recall those expensive units out. So like if you want to guarantee some kind of damage, you lift the light units up, get some Zealots and whatever, like Sentries, Adepts maybe, but that's not that useful. You want to be getting the chunky boys, but the chunky boys can be recalled because you don't actually have damage to kill them before the recall takes effect. And then after that recall, if your opponent's got a Stargate, well, you can't rally Phoenixes across the map and compete. He'll have an expansion. He'll have 4 gas way before you do. He'll have 2 Stargates, 3 Stargates, Phoenix production before you do, and you'll lose that fight as well. So I don't think Stargate is a particularly strong answer to the Proxy Robo, because you just do what Stats does, or Stats did, and just go Stargate of your own after you deny their natural. And you're basically ahead of base, and then you'll be ahead in Stargate units as well. So it's not like mana needed to kill his opponent here, though I will say that he always does. If ever there's an opportunity where mana is pushing and you have the option to go back or just kill your opponent, mana always just kills his opponent, and it always works. So maybe he just knows that there's no way Harstem would defend this, and there's no way he'll have disruptors out or anything. The fact that he had the base there already and he denied it probably means you go in for the kill, whereas if he doesn't have the base there, it means you sit there and contain. So in the game with Stats got here against Zest. Zest didn't have a natural down like Harstem did. Zest had like 6 Stalkers and a later Robo, so he had pretty much the same composition and production as Stats, and Stats doesn't push up the ramp against that because that would be silly, right? But if you've cancelled 300, you basically denied 100 minerals, and more importantly, you just know that Harstem's put 500 resources here with the Nexus and the Pylon, and then that 500 resources has been cancelled or killed, and now he just needs to spend that, and there's no real quick way of spending that because Harstem's production isn't geared towards having a sudden 300 mineral input and like being able to spend that into anything useful. So like if he had an extra gate or something, maybe it wouldn't be so bad and he could hold on, but unfortunately this isn't even close, and Harstem once again just dies. So yeah, really cool game. Proxy Robo, everyone's trying to bamboozle each other. Harstem pretending like he is proxying and doesn't, and then Mana pretending like he's not proxying and does. Like that's just such a meme matchup, meme games, every game. There's not been anything that you would consider like a very standard solid thing yet. So but there's still many series left, so we can keep our fingers crossed, but it just doesn't look like anybody's doing that. Even if you go Sentry Stalker, except for Hellraiser. You got to give Hellraiser his due, because he definitely was going for some sort of macro style on that game against Stats, and then Stats just 2 base all ins him. Like, of all people to get 2 base all in by, it has to be heckin' Stats, right? When you're trying to be a good old macro boy.